The 8th of August, 1942. Mykop outskirts, northern Caucasus. A warm wind breathes across the oil tanks, lifting the smell of fuel and dust into the night. Lieutenant Karl Hespelt cups a match against the breeze, the flare of sulfur painting his fingers orange as he lights a cigarette and really listens. The depot sleeps beneath blackout canvas and camouflage nets, a chessboard of shadowed drums and stacked crates. Somewhere beyond the tree line, the Tereg's tributaries whisper over stones, and a dog in the village of Kanskaya barks twice, then falls silent. There, a faint putter like a sewing machine far away, not the full-throated growl of a Junkers or Messerschmitt, not even the lazy drone of a liaison Storch. Hespelt tips his head and the sound fades, returns, fades again, until the night becomes a taut wire you could pluck with a fingernail. He glances at the sentry box where Gefreiter Rauch pretends not to shiver, Mauser slung, eyes narrowed toward the eastern dark. "Do you hear it?" Hespelt asks. Rauch fishes a hand from his greatcoat. "Sir?" But the sky has already swallowed the noise. The wind stirs the poplars. A loose sheet of tarpaulin flaps once and settles. Hespelt tells himself it was nothing an overworked ear, a trick of the hills. He taps ash, watches it thread to the gravel, and lets his attention drift to the perimeter. Trip flares like sleeping cats, coils of wire, the field telephone on a crate, with its cloth-covered cord snaking to the liaison hut. Across the valley, two specks of light blink and vanish. Not lights, eyes, Hespelt thinks suddenly. He rubs his brow, annoyed at the thought, and turns back toward the tanks. The depot commander had said the flight route from Krasnodar was secure now that elements of 1, Geberg's division and 17. Army had pushed the front beyond the Kuban bend. The Luftwaffe owned these nights. Only the Luftwaffe wasn't here now. The sound returns low, deliberate, as if the engine itself is holding its breath. It slides from the southeast, neither climbing nor descending, riding the night like a sailor listening for shoals. A biplane. Hespelt's mind rejects the word. This is 1942, not 1916. The Soviets fly P-2 seconds, IL-2 seconds, Yak fighters, not kites, stitched from canvas. And yet the whisper thickens into the soft tick-tick-tick of an M11 radial throttled to idle, and a shape passes between stars, a ghost of ribs and struts, dark, slow, skimming the treetops. Alarm! Hespelt's shout tears the depot awake. Boots thud across gravel. A corporal trips the nearest flare and a white sun erupts, turning the world to bone and shadow. In that hard light, the machine is suddenly there, Polikarpov, Po-2, low and level, a black cross-hatched wing ripping silently across the halo as if it has no weight. Then, in a movement so gentle it seems obscene, the pilot cuts the engine. The whisper dies. Only the wind remains. Silence falls like snowfall. You can hear the leather creak of men shifting, the ring of a bolt worked back, a breath sucked through teeth. The biplane glides it drifts straight over the barrel farm and the rail spur where open wagons glitter with spilled grain. A figure leans from the cockpit, scarf snapping. Behind her, a navigator hunches over a mapboard that flashes white and vanishes. Two small black pairs tumble from beneath the lower wing, FAB 50 seconds. Hespelt's brain supplies with a librarian's calm, each 50 kilograms of cheap, deadly arithmetic. Trip flares flare again, and the depot becomes a stage. The bombs fall past the glare into the dark between tanks, and for an instant nothing happens. Hespelt hears the dog in Kanskaya resume barking, frantic now, and the telephone rings in the liaison hut with astonishing politeness, as if inviting someone to tea. The first bomb lifts the ground with a flat, gut-punch thump, a geyser of dust and metal rising like a curtain. Men spill as if the blast had cut their strings. The second slams into the rail spur, the wagons popping into sparks, wood and iron turning into scythes. Heat licks Hespelt's face. He throws himself behind the nearest berm as shards hiss overhead and pebbles rain onto his neck. "FlaK! FlaK! Bring the 2 centimeter up!" Someone screams. A pair of gunners wrestle the 2 centimeters. FlaK 38 on its wheeled carriage toward a gap in the drums, the loader cursing as the belt catches. But the Po-2 has already banked, the pilot trimming with the gentlest nudge, fabric wings murmuring. The M11 coughs alive again, 1, 2, 3 cylinders catching, and the little biplane lopes off, gaining barely a handful of meters, too slow for searchlights to lock, too low for predictors to compute. Witches, Rausch breathes. Not quite a joke, not quite a prayer. Somewhere to the west, a second whisper answers, then a third. The night is full of gliders that are not gliders, of women who are not supposed to be here, of aircraft that belong to another war and yet have arrived precisely in this one. Hespelt wipes grit from his eyes. He looks up and sees another Po-2 hanging off the wind like a hawk over a hedgerow, silhouetted in flare light, the navigator's scarf a bright slash before darkness takes it back. He understands only now how a thing can be both ridiculous and terrifying, how something mocked as a relic can carry the future in its quiet hands. The depot phone shrills again. The second wave is already on the way. The 8th of August 1942, forward strip near Primorsko-Akhtarskaya, Kuban. The night smells of petrol and damp earth. A moon as thin as a shaving hangs over a field hacked from a sunflower farm, its runway marked by 2 kerosene lanterns hidden in tin cans. Kapitan Yevdokiya Bershanskaya, commander of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, stands with her hands in her greatcoat pockets, watching the ground crew hand-swing the wooden prop of a Polikarpov Po-2. The M11 radial coughs, sputters, and steadies into that familiar sewing machine purr. Crew 11, you're up. Her voice is low, economical. Sergeant Nadezhda Popova tightens the chin strap of her leather helmet and glances at the woman crouched beside the wing root. Ready, Sonia? Ready, replies Mladshi Sergeant Sofia Ozerkova, navigator bombardier, her chartboard already slung and pencil tied with string so it won't blow away. She pats the 2 Fab 52nds clipped under the lower wings, ugly, utilitarian things, their stenciling half-sanded by grit. On the rack behind, a pair of small AO fragmentation canisters sit like tin kettles. No radios, no armor, no parachutes tonight. Weight is fuel, and fuel is range. Bershanskaya leans in at the cockpit combing. Wind from the east, 10 to 12. Keep low along the reed beds, then climb over the orchard. The depot's covered by twin searchlights on the southern approach, but they're slow on the swivel. Work the slip. Remember, pairs. Popova nods. You can feel the air here. The Kuban grass comes up in clumps through the frost-heaved dirt and whispers along the fuselages. The regiment lives from this ground tents, a repair pit dug with shovels, an oil drum warming point with a kettle always just short of a boil. Mechanics in men's coveralls smear grease across their sleeves and pass tools like surgeons. Someone hums a tune under her breath, then stops when a flare lifts from the far horizon, a pale flower over German lines. Launching! The chocks come out. The Po-2 bumps forward, its tail lifting reluctantly as if the airplane remembers it was born a trainer and would prefer to stay at school. But then the wings bite. The little biplane skips, floats, and clears the fence by the width of a breath. The lanterns dwindle behind them. The night opens. Below, the Kuban's checkerboard, orchards and irrigation ditches stitched together by dirt lanes. Popova holds 70 meters altitude, just above the treetops, hands gentle on the stick because heavy hands make noise. Ozerkova taps her shoulder and points there, a line of willow crowns that hides a drainage ditch. They slide along it like a canoe. 2 minutes to the bend, Ozerkova says, mouth near Popova's ear to save words from the slipstream. She has the depot's coordinates scrawled and re-scrawled, distances measured in thumb widths. Another pair from their regiment, Crew 9, moves somewhere off to port, invisible except for the occasional wink of a cigarette ember cupped against a palm. They'll go first, draw the beams and the FlaK. Crew 11 will come in when the searchlights are still recovering, when the German eyes are dazzled. Ahead, the sky flickers, a flare, then the white teeth of a 2 centimeters battery feeling for altitude. Popova's jaw hardens. She noses up, just a touch, to clear an orchard wall, a black seam in the ground, and brings the throttle to idle. The M11 stammers and dies. Wind alone holds them. The world narrows to the hiss around the struts and the soft chatter of guy wires. You lean forward with them, involuntarily. There is nothing between the women and the night but canvas and nerve. The Po-2's lift at these speeds is a rumour, yet it holds. Popova eases into a forward slip, left rudder, right stick, the fuselage presenting its flank to the wind, so the aircraft descends without gaining speed. To the Germans, a target that doesn't drone is a target that doesn't exist. Searchlights rake past too high. Crew 9 has made their pass. A blossom of orange rolls up from the rail spur, and tracers bend toward the noise of a retreating engine. Popova and Ozakova ride the blind spot beneath that light like swimmers under a breaking wave. Release in 3, Ozakova whispers, crouched over her sight, a simple grid in a frame. She counts the ground by feel. The glitter of oil drums, the silver line of track, the geometry of shadow where a tarpaulin tent sags over crates. 2, 1, now. The first Fab 50 drops clean. Popova trims for the second. Somewhere below, a telephone rings in a hut, and a German officer yells for the 2 centimeters to traverse right. The biplane drifts as if curious, as if contemplating where to lay the next stone on a go-board. The second bomb falls. Popova holds the slip, holds it, then kicks rudder, levels, and thumbs the primer. The M11 coughs back to life with a sound like a cat clearing its throat. FlaK snaps open where the noise returns too late by seconds. But seconds are a lifetime at 50 meters. Tracers comb the air, green needles sewing up the sky. A searchlight catches their lower wingtip and slides off. Ozakova grips the combing and laughs one bright, unbelieving burst, then clamps her mouth shut and points to a notch in the tree line that will hide their turn home. Behind them, fire blooms among the drums. The wind carries the smell first, the sour sweetness of burning petrol, then the heat, a warm palm pressed against their backs. Popova doesn't look. She banks into the reeds and the night takes them again, as softly as a door closing. The 9th of August, 1942. German fuel, depot aid post, Mykop sector. The air inside the aid post is thick with ether and scorched wool. Hespelt sits on an ammunition crate turned into a bench, while a medic winds a bandage around a cut at his hairline. The floor trembles now and then with delayed explosions as small fires find bigger ones. Someone has opened a shutter an inch for air. Through the slit he sees the sky blinking white from the flares, orange from the tank farm, green where tracers climb and fall like dying fireflies. 2 aircraft. Maybe 3, the depot commander says into the field telephone, thumb clamped over the mouthpiece to steady his voice. Slow, very slow. Came in with engines off. Yes, Herr Hauptmann biplanes. I know how it sounds. Another private staggers in, coughing black. Sir, there were women, he says, like a man reporting a ghost. Scarves. I saw. His words dissolve into a violent fit. The medic eases him onto a stretcher. Hespelt pushes to his feet despite the medic's protest. Not witches, he says, calmer than he feels. Polikarpov Po-2. Trainers. Wood and fabric. They cut engines and glide. He sniffs smoke that tastes of almonds and oil. If they fly that slow, our predictor sights overshoot. We traverse too fast. From beyond the shutter comes a sound like canvas sighing a slip of wind over struts. Every man in the room freezes. Then a 2 centimeters battery opens up directly overhead, the bark of the FlaK 38 rattling crockery on a shelf. The telephone shrieks. The depot commander slams it down. Tell the searchlights to sweep low and lag their own traverse. He barks to the runner at the door. Set the belts to mixed, HE tracer, and for God's sake move the lights apart, no more crossing beams, we're blinding ourselves. He doesn't say what they are all thinking. If a child's airplane can slip past their guns and set a sea of fuel alight, what else can? War, suddenly, is not just steel and speed. It is also patience and nerve in the black spaces between. The 9th of August, 1942 forward strip. near Primorsko-Akhtarskaya. Dawn comes in layers ash-grey, then pearl, then the pale yellow of tea. The regiment's tents are beaded with dew. Popova and Ozakova stand by their pontoon while a mechanic picks shrapnel from the tailplane fabric with tweezers. Each hole is patched with a glued ellipse of linen, doped smooth with a brush and a thumb. "A hedgehog got at you," the mechanic says, deadpan, meaning FlaK. Bershanskaya walks the line, a clipboard tucked under her arm, her boots whitening with dust. She stops at each crew, listens, marks. A kettle steams on the oil drum stove. Someone has found sugar and is hoarding it in enamel mugs. From a trestle table, a political officer reads the overnight radio summary. The Germans are digging into the Terek line. The bomb group near Armavir claims rail damage. The women of the 588th are commended for initiative and courage in night operations. "Report," Bershanskaya says. "2 drops, both on the target area," Ozakova answers, tapping her chartboard where pencil smudges have turned to a topography of decisions. "We used the slip under the southern light. They adjusted fire toward noise. We left them silence instead." Popova allows herself a sliver of a smile. From the far end of the field, laughter ripples, then swells. A dispatch rider on a motorcycle has arrived from a neighboring guards unit with a scrap of intercepted German chatter. The paper passes from hand to hand until it reaches Bershanskaya. She reads, and a small crease appears at the corner of her mouth. "Nachthexen," she says, savoring the syllables. "Night witches." The word moves through the squadron like a spark along a fuse, first a murmur, then delight, then a quiet pride that settles into the bones. Witches? Fine. If a name can frighten, it can also shield. Popova rolls the new title on her tongue, looks at the little aircraft with its patched linen, its wooden struts, its engine that can be silenced by hand. "If they think we are witches," she says to Ozakova, "let them bring brooms." "Brooms we can dodge," Ozakova replies. "Predictors we must learn." She draws a rectangle in the air, the imaginary cone of a searchlight, then traces a curve just beneath it. "We'll go in pairs, separated by 20 seconds. First draws the light and sound, second rides the dark. If they lag their traverse, we'll lag our noise." Bershanskaya hears them and nods once. "We adjust too," she says. "From tonight, decoy runs with empty canisters to trigger FlaK, new routes along the reed beds. And we try something else, short climbs to 1100 meters before cutting, then steep slips down the last 200. Harder to predict. The kettle whistles, the sun lifts. Mechanics swing props and the M11 seconds cough into life, one after another, like a row of stoves being lit in a long kitchen. Somewhere a girl hums again, quiet at first, then louder as the noise covers it. The regiment is already shrinking into the heat haze, becoming a rumour the wind carries west. On the German side, a clerk pencils a new word into a daily report, half amused, half awed, Nachthexen, and under it, a note in a thinner hand, Mit Motor aus, with engine off. The 17th of April 1943, Kuban bridgehead, north of Krimskaya. By spring, the front had hardened into a maze of trench lines and reed-choked rivers, the air above it patrolled by beams and ears more than by eyes. The Germans had learned. Searchlights no longer crossed and blinded each other, but worked like metronomes, 2 sweeping low, 2 held high, 1 held back to pounce when the others caught a silhouette. 2 centimeters. FlaK 38 seconds sat in half-moon pits around depots and junctions, belts loaded hey tracer, as if the sequence itself were a spell against the women in the canvas biplanes. In a slit trench beside the rail triangle at Krimskaya, Feldwebel Vogel smoked and listened, just as Hespelt once had. His crew's predictor sight had been recalibrated to slow targets. His men drilled to lag the traverse, feel the wind. A radar truck with a stubby mattress antenna, Fu MG 62, Würzburg, wallowed in the mud nearby, its operator complaining that ghosts cluttered the set. The Po, too small and too slow, slipped in and out of the lobe like minnows. Across the marshes, The 588th read the same night and wrote in its margins. Under a canvas lamp at the forward strip near Primorsko-Akhtarskaya, Kapitan Bershanskaya pinned a hand-drawn map to a wicket fence. "Pairs and decoys," she said. "Crew 7 goes first, empty canisters only. Draw them high. Crew 11, Nadia and Sonia, you will ride beneath the light's recovery. Count to 20, not 19. Not 21. She tapped a smudge on the paper. "Primary, rail triangle. Secondary, ammunition sidings here." Sergeant Nadezhda Popova touched the frayed edge of her glove and nodded. She and Mladshi Sergeant Sofia Ozakova had flown 4 sorties in a single night before. They would fly 6 if the field held, if the engines held, if their luck and the moon together measured out a thin enough thread. The Po-2 waited with its wooden prop at a cant and its fabric taut with new dope. 2 Fab 52nds hung under the wings like kicked boots. A canvas satchel of AO frag canisters lay under Ozakova's knees, tin lids wired for quick rip. They were airborne by 2240, the ground sliding into a stitched black quilt. The river shone dull pewter where the moon touched it. Popova trimmed for height over the first orchard, then flattened into the reeds, counting heartbeats. 17, 18, 19. Ozakova's breath warmed her ear. 20. Popova pulled the throttle to a burbling idle and then to silence. You feel the airplane lighten when the engine dies. The Po-2's struts hum. The world becomes a long, slow exhale. Ahead, the night opens like a door. To the left, Crew 7 decoys roar their engine, drop empty canisters with theatrical clatter, and claw away. Searchlights pounce upward, dazzled by their own haste. FlaK follows the noise. The sky above Krimskaya turns to white fingernails and green stitches. Popova slides into the space that noise leaves behind. She holds the slip like a violinist holding a note just below the ear's expectation, wind working the fuselage, rudder feathering, aileron steady. "Triangle coming," Ozakova whispers, bent over the simple grid of her sight. The geometry appears. Rails like a child's chalk drawing, boxcars squared against embankments, a stove's red blink in a hut. She touches Popova's shoulder twice left of the signal hut, then once now. 1 Fab 50 goes, the airplane stepping lighter, floating a breath higher. A second later, Ozakova wires the lid on an AO canister and flips it over the side. It cartwheels, then scatters a halo of steel. Popova kicks rudder, holds the slip, then kisses the primer. The M11 coughs and comes back with a rattle that feels like salvation and betrayal at the same time. Sound is life, and sound is a target. FlaK answers low this time, as Vogel's crew has been taught tracers combing the reeds. Snapping past with a whip crack, the camera inside your head can't help but flinch from. A searchlight licks the lower wing, catches the interplane struts, and slides away. Popova drops into the shadow of a drainage ditch so shallow it's more idea than ground. Splinters chatter through the tail, fabric flutters, the airplane shivers but holds. The first blast arrives as a lift in the air, then a slap of heat. Ammunition doesn't explode, it decides, and then it teaches. Light pours upward from the sidings as if someone had torn the night and revealed the sunrise behind it. A second, smaller concussion chases Frag into the trench where Vogel's loader is already on his knees, hands over his ears, mouth open. He thinks, absurdly, of his mother's sewing machine and of how little noise it made before it broke the thread. Popova never looks back. You don't. Not if you want to live. She lets the engine run a count longer, then kills it again, and rides the last field into the reeds, leveling only when the lanterns of their own strip wink twice, then once the agreed signal. On the line, mechanics swarm, palms to fabric, ears to engine casings. The tail is a constellation of holes. Ozakova's scarf smells of cordite and river. Again? Popova asks, because the question is both routine and defiance. Again, Bershanskaya says, and again after that, while the light still hurts their eyes. She marks the triangle with a pencil star and adds a single note in the margin. Guardsworthy. The regiment is flying itself into legend, one silent approach at a time. Out at the rail triangle, Vogel stares at the burning sidings and realizes his new drills are already old. The night belongs to anyone willing to hold their breath longer than he can. The 22nd of June, 1944. Southern approaches to Bobruisk, Belorussia. The night is wet and green, the air heavy with peat and mosquitoes. The Berezina loops through reed beds that seem to breathe, and the German 9. Army crouches behind fieldworks that are already too shallow for what is coming. In a slit trench beside a pontoon park, Oberleutnant Rudi Kramer of a bridging detachment flicks water from his field cap and squints at the sky. Somewhere to the west, thunder mutters. No, not thunder. Guns. Far off at first, then many, then one long rip of sound like canvas tearing from horizon to horizon. Operation Bagration has begun. Keep the truck's nose in, he tells his NCO, nodding at Opel blitzes stacked with pontoons and trestles. If orders come, we move. The NCO jots the command on a clipboard wrapped in oilskin. They both pretend not to notice how the earth seems to pulse under their boots. The searchlight crews have new drills now, honed since the Kuban. Paired sweeps, one high, one low, a reserve beam to pounce. Belts in the FlaK 38 seconds loaded heat tracer in a slow, deliberate pattern. There's even a single 3.7 centimeters FlaK 36 on a low mound with its crew smug about, proper punch. A Würzburg set turns its dish like a sniffing nose, but the operator has learned not to promise too much. Small echoes, he warns. They hide in the ground clutter. Across the lines, the 588th is no longer the 588th. In February 1943, after the Taman fighting, the regiment took the Guards' title 46th Guards Night Bomber and wore it in their posture more than on their sleeves. Kapitan Yevdokiya Bershanskaya, still their center of gravity, unrolls a plastic-coated map in a dripping tent on a Belarusian meadow and taps the rail east of Bobruisk with a pencil. Bridges and sidings, she says. We will salt them until dawn. Sergeant Nadezhda Popova and Mladshi Sergeant Sofia Ozakova strap in, faces glossed with rain. Their two smells of glue and hot oil, patched and repatched until the airplane is more story than wood. Under the lower wings hang two FAB 52nds. Beside Ozakova's knees sit AO frag canisters wired with neat, ruthless care. No radios, no armor, flight by touch and agreement. They go at 23:10, lanterns at the strip hooded in tin, prop hand-swung, the M11 settling into its thread count hum. The marshlands swallow them. Popova rides at treetop height, left hand feathering throttle, right hand light on the stick. Ozakova marks their crawl with a pencil and a whispered litany: ditch, birch stand, cart track, curve in river, things you can navigate by when stars and moon are only rumors behind low cloud. You lean with them instinctively when Popova trims up over a farmer's hedge, then mutes the engine with a practiced twist. Silence folds in, thick as the wet on their cheeks. They slip, left rudder, right stick, drifting sideways so slowly the reeds below seem to move faster than the airplane does. Ahead, a low field hut shows an ember someone stove, and beyond it, a geometry of rails and the black bar of a bridge. On the far bank, Oberleutnant Kramer hears it the way a man hears his name across a crowded station, a suggestion of presence more than sound. He lifts his binoculars and sees, absurdly, a floating shade backlit by their own searchlight spill, as if the night itself has been cut into the shape of a biplane. "Low!" he snaps. "Sweep low!" Gunners crank with measured slowness, trained since the Kuban to resist the urge to whip the traverse. But the women have adjusted too. Crew 4 has already roared past high, empty canisters clanking against a tin roof to bait the beams. Popova and Ozakova, 20 seconds behind the noise, slide inside the hinge of those beams and skim the dark along the reed beds. Ozakova kisses her sight's frame, just metal and a grid, and taps Popova twice on the shoulder. The first Fab 50 falls. The Po-2 lifts as if relieved. A heartbeat later, Ozakova flicks an AO canister into the river's black ribbon, where it hisses and then scratches the bridge with steel. The beams pounce, late. FlaK opens measured, correct, murderous in any other sky. Tracer rips past with a sound like wet rope snapped at your ear. A green line grazes their interplane struts, fabric shivers, raindrops leap from the wing like silver fish. Popova lets the silence carry them 1, 2, 3 counts more, then thumbs the primer. The M11 coughs alive and the searchlights lock right where she wants them. She holds the glare, dares it, then ducks under it into the notch of a drainage ditch. The second bomb drops, and a sheet of warm air slaps their faces. At the pontoon park, Kramer feels the bridge itself flinch, the pontoon noses bumping their moorings. He tastes cordite and river. "Cover the trucks!" he shouts to no one, to everyone. His 3.7 centimeters crew rams another clip. The loader's hands shake, and he pretends it's the rain. The searchlight men are sweating under their rubber coats, breath making ghosts inside their hoods. Popova and Ozakova never look back. You don't. They ride a seam of dark up the Berezina until the rain itself becomes their camouflage, until the only thing you can hear is the hiss on the struts. Only when the lanterns of their strip wink twice, then once do they let the engine run out its coughs and bring the little biplane home on tired wings. On the line, mechanics press palms to fabric and trade looks that say more than reports can. Bershanskaya checks a damp clipboard, pencil marks turning to stars beside lines that read Bobruisk, sidings, bridge spans, salted. Somewhere in the tent, a political officer notes, almost offhand, that 23 women of the regiment now wear the gold star of Hero of the Soviet Union, and the number will not be final. The kettle rattles on the oil drum. Another pair jogs for their pontoon. The night is wide, and there is time for one more run. The 15th of April 1945, Oder River, east of Kustrin. The Oder runs black as tar under a sky rubbed raw by distant fires. The air smells of damp willow and coal smoke and the sharp, metallic taste you learn to recognize as a city breaking. On the west bank, field kitchens hiss. On the east, searchlights prowl like patient animals, their beams thinner now, their arcs frayed by shortages and retreat. Army Group Vistula clings to the bridgeheads before the silo heights. 9. Army stacked into trenches not deep enough, hopes not thick enough. At a bend in the river near Lechin, Oberfeld-Webel-Vogel, older by 2 winters, narrower in the face, leans his shoulder into a FlaK 38's shield and listens. He tells the new loader to slow his hands, to feel the traverse, to count out loud if he must. The radar truck is gone, cannibalized for parts. The 3.7 centimeters has one crewman with a bandaged ear. The searchlight men sit on ammunition cases and talk softly about home. Someone hands Vogel a cigarette he doesn't want, and he tucks it behind his ear like a pencil. Across damp pasture on the far side, in a meadow that still smells of last year's hay, tin-shaded lanterns wink twice, then once. Kapitan Yevdokiya Bershanskaya holds a clipboard under her greatcoat against the mist. The pencil has swollen from the wet and she sharpens it with a clasp knife. "Pontoons, spans and river parks," she says. "Then the sidings. We go until the fuel is gone." She looks at her crews, women who have traded sleep for flight for 3 years, and nods once, the smallest bow to what they already know. Sergeant Nadezhda Popova and Mladshi Sergeant Sofia Ozakova climb into a pontoon patched so many times it looks like a quilt in 3 shades of linen. 2 Fab 52nds hang beneath the lower wings. AO frags lie wired beside Ozakova's knees. No radios, no armor, no illusions. The mechanic hand swings the prop. The M11 fires like a tired dog, clearing its throat and settles into a purr thin as thread. They rise into mist, and the meadow drops away. Popova keeps them at treetop height, the Oder off her right shoulder, a darker vein in the dark. Ozakova touches her map with 2 fingers, counting in a language made of ditches and orchards, and the dull pewter of water beneath the moon. Somewhere off to port, Crew 2 roars high to rattle empty cans and draw the beams. The searchlights twitch, hesitate, choose the noise. The old lessons hold. Popova pinches the throttle, and the engine dies obediently, as it has 100 times. Silence opens. The slip comes like a muscle memory left rudder, right stick, nose down just enough to keep the wing honest. The pontoon drifts toward the river park, where bridge sections lie like ribs, where pontoon noses bump the bank with soft, wet thuds. Men move as shadows among trucks and timbers. A stove glow blinks inside a tent and is gone, snuffed as alarms patter outward. "Span A-beam," Ozakova whispers, breath warm on Popova's cheek. She sights by a frame of wire and faith. The first FAB-50 drops. The airplane steps lighter, and the slip deepens like a dancer's bow. Tracers rise late, and low green threads sewn by hands that have learned too much and slept too little. Popova holds the silence beyond prudence, beyond comfort, until the hairs on her forearms lift at the pressure of it. Then she thumbs the primer, and the M11 comes back with a cough that feels like a sin and a salvation. Vogel's crew catches the returning noise, just as they were trained. Lag the traverse, feel the wind, do not chase the sound, let it come to you. The searchlight, reserved and husbanded like bread, pounces. For a heartbeat, the little biplane is a paper cutout hung in milky light, struts, ribs, a scarf, then it slides under the beam as if the light were water, and the airplane had been born to swim. Vogel swears once, softly. He squeezes the paddle. The gun bucks. The loader feeds. The shells go where the engine was, not where it is. The second bomb falls and the river lifts. The blast slaps Popova and Ozakova with warm air that tastes of rope and cordite. Pontoon noses snap their lines and waggle, clunking together like drift ice. A truck rolls into the shallows with a grinding, helpless dignity. Men run without looking up. A voice calls numbers as if they were a prayer. Popova does not look back. You don't. She rides a seam of darkness along the willows until the beam can't bend that low, then kills the engine again and lets silence carry them another field, another hedgerow, another count of 4. The lanterns at their meadow wink twice, then once the home signal their hands invented and never needed to write down. The wheels brush wet grass, the tail kisses mud. The world becomes the settle and tick of cooling metal and the breath that only comes when you are earthbound again. Bershanskaya is there before the prop stops, palm on the coaming, eyes fierce with the kind of pride that has no room for smiles. Fuel? Enough for one more, Ozakova says, rain cutting trails through the grime on her cheeks. Then one more, Bershanskaya answers, as if the war can be measured in repetitions until it ends. Somewhere in the tent, a kettle rattles on an oil drum. Somewhere in the east, the guns thicken into a sound that means morning. And beyond morning, the push up the silo heights. A dispatch rider will arrive tomorrow with a typed sheet that mentions bridges damaged and sidings salted, and the title the regiment has carried since Taman Guards, set beside their number with the casual gravity of a fact. On the far bank, Vogel lights the cigarette from behind his ear with hands he forces to be steady. He watches the smoke rise and vanish into mist. He thinks, not for the first time, that the night belongs to those who can hold their breath longer. He will tell the new boys to listen harder, to aim lower, to count to 20. He knows now. It won't matter. Dawn unbuttons the sky, one pale thread at a time. The women swing props. The M11 seconds cough. The meadow opens its hands. Somewhere, a name travels the river in 2 languages, and the sound of canvas sighing, Nachthexen, night witches. And still the engines go quiet.